All right, people are whining that the price of used cars has gone totally insane, but if you look around, it's not always as bad as you think. Customer just bought this for his daughter. It's a 2003 Honda Accord with 90-something thousand miles on it. He paid $3,500. You got a pretty good deal, even during this coronavirus pandemic, if you use your head and price around. And hilariously enough, he got this at a used car lot. It was a trade-in at a Honda dealer. Then they sold it to the used car lot who sold it to him for $3,500. He's a combat veteran, just recently retired. He got this for his daughter. He spent a lot of time, months and months, till he found this thing. Take your time when you're looking for a used car. Now, of course, for his daughter, you don't want an ugly looking car. Check around, make sure it's not all bashed in. In this case, it's not. It's still got the original Honda wheels. And this could do with a little buffing out, but that's no big deal. Car's actually in excellent shape. And of course, he was smart. He checked underneath, and there's no leak, nothing's leaking, no fluids. And the interior, they claimed it was a one-owner car, an older man, I believe it. It's only got 92,000 miles on it. It's in really good shape. Lots of room in these Accords. They were great cars. Well, Honda, you turn the key, starts right up. The AC blows freezing cold. No, it isn't all the car, so you got a 6-disc CD changer. It does still work. But in this case, the check engine light is on. Even though it runs okay, so let's check it out. Plug the out scan tool in. Now, this particular Honda Accord was made in Ohio in the United States, 1993. Now realize Honda's been making cars in Ohio since 1982. They've been making them there a long time. It's a big headquarters. I've been there. It's an amazing facility. So even though it's not made in Japan, these are still excellent vehicles. Now we'll look at the code, and it's P0141 about the oxygen sensor heater. Now the car runs perfectly fine. What happens is, years ago, they made the car oxygen sensors have little heaters in them because it would warm up faster. So for like the first minute and a half of you driving a car, it doesn't pollute too much, right? It's a real nitpicky thing. Well, generally the circuits burn out in the oxygen sensor, but that only affects the startup of the car with a little more pollution. It really isn't going to affect the running of the car. We're going to look at the oxygen sensor data to see what's happening. We'll check out the Honda OEM Enhanced and the live data. Here's the oxygen sensor output. We'll do a graph of it. Supposed to go up and down. Guess what? It's going up and down. We'll rev the engine up. You can say it's going up and down. So in this case, the oxygen sensor itself's working perfectly fine. It's just that it isn't heating up fast enough. You could drive a car 100 years this way, isn't going to hurt anything. The guy lives here in Clarksville, Tennessee. They don't do emissions testing, so he doesn't care that the stupid check engine light is on with that stupid code. If you live where they do inspections, you would have to replace bank 1, sensor 2, the oxygen sensor, by a catalytic converter, and the code would go away unless it had burned out the circuit or burned out driver control inside the computer or the wiring went bad. Generally, it's always the heater goes out. But all that does is affect the startup for the first minute or so of the car. So he doesn't care. He's going to live with it. He's been driving it for a couple of months. Like, there's no problems other than the stupid check engine light stays on. So that's no big deal. Let's do an all module scan now. There it is right there. Push go. That's going to scan everything. These Honda Accords are rugged vehicles. They're strong engines, and the transmission is an automatic. It's one that Honda built themselves. Honda's been making those trannies great. They had problems in the past, but they don't have problems anymore. They got a good engineering company. Now the transmission is a 5-speed automatic that Honda makes. They're excellent transmissions. They get good power and good gas mileage combination. They got a lot of zip to them, but they get decent gas mileage. You could get a little better gas mileage by having a tranny that was a little bit sluggish, but people like these cars because they're zippy. It has 160 horsepower, but it's also got a very good variable valve timing system that Honda invented. Well, now the computer's done. It's got one code for fuel injection module. Let's see what that says. Aha! It's the same code. It's the oxygen heater sensor. So like it said, it doesn't affect the running of the car. Who cares? And it also has 2 body electrical codes. Let's see what they are. Honda relay module, lost communication. Basically codes that don't mean all that much. They get aged. Sometimes the computers lose power through a relay or something. The car runs fine, stops fine, who cares? So let's take it for a road test. See if he got his $3,000 worth, $3,500. So I'll take it for a spin, and the first thing I noticed, put it in drive, what happens? Nothing. It doesn't shake anymore. It's still smooth even though it's old. And once we get going down the road, this thing still got the original struts on it. It doesn't ride bad at all. Hondas were always fun, driving, comfortable cars. if you get in an Accord. It handles twisties fine, no problem at all, zooming around. And as I drive, everything sounds normal. I don't hear any roaring wheel bearings or engine or transmission bearings. Still a pretty quiet car. Now this guy is a retired infantryman, so you know, he's not rich. He spent a lot of time researching this to get a nice car for his daughter. The guy knew what he was doing. So let's come to a stop and see how much of this 160 horsepower are still left in this thing. And here we go. Once the VVT kicks in, still shifts smooth, got decent acceleration. Of course it's not breakneck acceleration, but it's zippy. It's fun to drive, and they're pretty safe vehicles. This is his daughter's first car. He made a pretty good choice. Personally, I'd have no qualms about jumping in this car and driving it to California. The only thing it really needs is a new fan belt, or drive belt, to be politically correct. It's still a very fun car to take out in the country and drive in the twisties or stop and go traffic. It's got no problems at all. Really, I'm amazed at how smooth it still idles. The engineers knew what they were doing when they built this 4-cylinder Accord. And the AC? It's still freezing cold. It's hot and humid today. It's gonna rain some more. Honda's had AC problems in the past, but not on these later model Honda Accords. They're pretty bulletproof. I just fixed a 99 Accord. The compressor still worked. All it did was have an electrical problem and I rewired it, and it still blew cold from a 99. Hey, the brakes still work fine. None of the suspension parts are even creaking. I'd say this retired infantryman did a good job for his daughter's first car. Like I say, he admitted he spent months looking for the thing. He just didn't go out and snatch the first thing he saw. He got himself a good deal for $3,500 in this coronavirus pandemic. The prices have gone nuts, so don't be totally disheartened and say, oh, I can't get a car, the prices are too high. There's still some deals out there if you have cash. He paid cash. So really, if you can find a car like this, and the only thing that really needs to be done is a new fan belt, drive belt, whatever you call it. You can see it's all cracked on the inside there, so it's time to change it. If you can find a Honda Accord like this with less than 100,000 miles for $3,500 and the only thing it needs is a fan belt, snap that baby up. This is a 2011 Scion TC. Now it's been through the washing machine. The man who owns it drives like a maniac, gets road rage all the time. And the only one problem it had was the engine blew up. But you can't blame the car. He got road rage in it going 80 miles an hour, and he inadvertently downshifted into first gear. Of course, the engine blew up. They can't rev that high. So we had to put a used engine in it, but it runs great now. No, they don't make Scions anymore. A lot of people say, oh, you don't make a car anymore. It's a bad car, don't buy it. Completely wrong in the case of Scion. Toyota just decided, for some bizarre reason, that young people don't like Toyota, so we'll make their own brand and call them Scion. Now, I understood why they made Lexus, because most people are like, oh, who's going to pay $50,000, $60,000 for a Toyota, so we'll make fancy ones and call them Lexus. That I understand. But why would you want to low brand a Toyota to sell it to young people and call it Scion? It just didn't make any sense to me. But they did, and Toyota marketed the heck out of them years ago. You could see music stores, there'd be a bunch of young people there, and they'd have music blaring, giving them free Scion test rides and stuff. They marketed the heck out of them. And they are actually a pretty good car. Take the Scion TC, for example. It originally was a $19,000 car. It's got a nice 6-speed transmission, a zippy 4-cylinder Toyota engine. For that price, you were really getting your money's worth. Check under the hood. Metal. This isn't a plastic Hulk like the new ones. For your money, you actually got a metal engine setup. It's all metal, it's not plastic junk. Now you can see, this does have junkyard writing because this is a used engine. As I said, you can't blame the car, that was the driver. Road rage to go 80 miles an hour and downshift into first gear. You can do that in just about any car, and it's gonna blow the engine up. Didn't hurt the transmission though, it still works perfectly fine. And of course, this is a sport version. A lot of people bought those boxy Scions. If they didn't mind a boxy vehicle, they were quick little vehicles too. I still don't understand why Toyota gave them a different name. I mean, didn't sell them as Toyotas, because that's what they're doing now. They no longer make Scions, but they make the same cars. They just call them Toyotas instead. So even though they don't make them anymore, it's no problem getting parts for these things. They're all Toyota parts. They're not all that expensive. These are fun cars to drive around in. Why oh why they decided to make a different brand name for them and then cut it out is beyond me. But obviously it has to do with sales. 2006 was the high point of Scions. They sold over 173,000 in the United States. But 2016, they only sold 12,000. The numbers just weren't there, so they decided to ditch the whole Scion experiment. So these Scions are part of a relatively rare phenomenon. A solid, well-built vehicle that failed. People didn't buy enough of them. Now, some of it just has to do with it's a two-door sedan. Two-door sedans in the United States are becoming less and less popular. Everyone wants an SUV with 4 doors and lots of space. That's one reason they went out. And this particular one is a 6-speed standard transmission. 93% of Americans don't even drive standards anymore. So there's a market that they're not selling to. As you can see inside, they're pretty snazzy. Got some nice chrome, black, nice instrument panel. Even got the face mask here. It's got the dual sunroof set up on it. And when we check the back, as you can see, it's a 2-door, but there's a reasonable amount of room in the back. It's not bad at all. And we go to the back, you can see it's got a pretty serious trunk. It's a hatch. The seats can move down. You can get a lot of room in these things. Once you empty all that stuff out and put them down, you can carry plywood, whatever you want. They're very utilitarian for a hatchback. Now this particular one's got 180 horsepower and hooked up to a 6-speed standard. It's really quick. If you were insane enough, they offered a TRD supercharger kit that would bump it all close to 300 horsepower. If you wanted to soup them up, you could soup them up, but they're plenty fast the way they are. They're not slow cars. They handle quite well. As I say, my customer that owns this gets road rage, is a little too wild, you know. He also has a Harley Davidson that he drives, so he's a little bit on the wild side. But this thing, amazingly enough, has held up. He had a Honda before he had this, and the Honda didn't hold up as well as this. The transmission was going out on the Honda because it couldn't take his driving. This transmission has no problems at all, even though he drives like a maniac. As you can see, it's a very quiet car just sitting here, and we'll see how it takes off. It's got some power to it. You can feel the bumps, but it's a sports car. This is a luxury limousine. It's made to handle, and those big 18-inch wheels hold the road well, but they're not made for a smooth ride. And as usual, ice cold air conditioning, even though it's old. So as you can see, it's actually a pretty high performance little car. If you ask me, they pretty much made a perfect little coupe. And for 19,000 bucks, that isn't much scratch. Take a Honda Civic Type R, great little race car. Hey, you're gonna pay 40-something grand for those things. Not $19,000 when they were brand new. And even though this thing's 10 years old, it's still real stylish. It's not something that goes out of style. It's a nice looking car. It's very aerodynamic. They're actually very handy cars. But with everybody having this big excitement for SUVs these days, a lot of sedans and coupes, they're just not making anymore. Toyota just decided to drop the entire line of Scion. They still make the same basic vehicles, they just give them a different name. Toyota had such a good reputation. I can understand American car manufacturers like Dodge. They don't make Dodge Rams anymore, they make Rams. They have their own name. They want to distance themselves from Fiat Chrysler as much as possible. Why would you want to distance yourself from Toyota when you're selling quality cars? Especially to young people. They knew Toyotas were good. They grew up with that. Why would you make something else? I don't know. Somebody had a little brain fart going on there. And I guess if you look at it, Toyota's never really been a sports car company. They make money selling regular cars, and with their Lexus division, luxury cars and SUVs to people. They were never a real sports car company. Look at their Supras now. They're just rebadged BMWs. Their other sports cars, they're just rebadged Subarus made by Subaru. That's not in their business. And I guess they just decided, they don't really need to make this little Scion sports car anymore. But they're great cars. If you can find a good used one and get a good price on one, hey, that could be a killer of a deal. Now, this is the second generation Solara convertible. It was made in Kentucky. The first generation was made in the same place as my Matrix, Cambridge, Ontario. But as for convertibles, the Kentucky one is better. They strengthened the body and frame. The original ones were a little bit bouncy. These have a better frame structure to them. If you really want a convertible, you want one made in Kentucky, not one made in Canada. The Canadians did a good job building them, but it's a better design on the later model ones like this. It's basically a Camry, but they cost a lot more than the Camrys. And of course, convertibles, they always cost a little bit more, but they do hold their value. But here's one thing you'd want to check out if you're buying one. First and second generations had 4 cylinders and V6s. This is probably the best one. It's a variable valve timing 3.3 liter V6. The only downfall is it is old, so it's got a rubber timing belt and you got to change it every 100,000 miles. Being a convertible, it's a heavier car. A lot of people think, why are convertibles heavier? They got a rag top that's made not out of metal. It's because they got to make the body stronger to take the flex, so they weigh more. You really don't want one of these with a 4-cylinder engine. You want it with a V6 engine. Saying that, I've only ever seen one that somebody bought that had a 4-banger. All the ones I worked on had V6 engines, which are plenty enough power to get it around. Being a heavy vehicle, they're not great on gas mileage. He probably averages 24 or something like that on a highway. They're not gas mileage cars. They're convertible, fun to drive around. And they're quite zippy, as you'll see when we take it for a road test. He only paid $6,800 for it in this crazy market, and it had 78,000 miles on it when he bought it. So people think, oh, that's expensive. It's a Toyota. It's a convertible. It's going to last a really long time. And that actually, even today, is a really good deal. Usual headlight fogging up. They did put cheaper headlights that were. You can polish them or you can do like I did. And just buy aftermarket lenses. This particular lens cost $50 6 years ago and it still looks fine. And do realize that some of these get power steering leaks, so check the racks where the boots are to see if they're leaking, because sometimes they need replacing, but of course it's all replaceable. And basically, being a Toyota Camry, there's parts up the wazoo aftermarket you can buy for these things. Companies that make convertibles, they make specialized parts, you got to go to them. This is basically a Camry. Most of the parts are totally interchangeable. Still got the factory wheels, alloy, and they're still in pretty good shape. You can see you got seat covers. So many seat covers are good seat covers. Save a lot of money. Obviously, not too many people sit in the back because they don't need seat covers. They're still in excellent shape. This car did come with leather seats, and leather seats will wear. They'll tear, they'll stain. And of course, if you're really into leather, you could do them over if you want. They look fine with seat covers, you ask me, but you can always do them over if you really want to. Now, you might think, hey, this thing's old. This thing's 17 years old. Let's get the computer and see what kind of shape it's in. Get our little $219 X tool, scan tool out. That really blows me away. And we'll stick this up here. It's called a PS701 Pro. Now, it only does Japanese cars. That's all it does. But hey, for $219, what it does is insane. Go to diagnosis. No, there's no stored codes. We scanned it for that. Let's go back. We'll look at live data. See what kind of shape this thing is in. Now, the long-term fuel term you can see is 8.6. So it's running a little bit lean. It's 8.6. Probably because I'm guessing the fuel injectors are a little bit dirty. It runs okay. And you can see the ignition timing is pretty much stable, 19.5. The timing belt really isn't worn because it's nice and stable. If the timing belt was worn, it'd be wobbling around and the timing would be going all over the place, but it isn't. So that's in good shape. Mass airflow sensor, that's good. It's 3.03 grams per second. It's a 3.3 liter engine. That could probably do with a little cleaning too. That could help it. Because it should be a little bit more grams per second. If it has less, it's going to run lean. If it has more, it's going to run rich. Lean's always better. That means that a car runs fine. It just needs a little bit more fuel because things are getting a little bit dirty from age. And you can see the fuel trim, 99.2 and 99.2. It's only 0.8% from perfection. So that's pretty good for a car this old. So as you can see, it's an old car, but it's in excellent shape. No codes. Yeah, it runs a little bit lean, but some fuel injection cleaner will often help that. You never get perfection. And really, check this out. It's idling. We'll put it in gear. Does the engine shake? No, it doesn't shake anymore. Yeah, it doesn't shake at all. So there's really nothing wrong. It's just running a little bit lean, mainly from old age. It's an old car, there's no backup camera, but hey, it's smooth. See, this has got the same mahogany as my wife's Lexus. It's definitely nicer than a Camry. And this is an old car. It has had the struts replaced once. And really, for this crappy Rhode Island road here, it doesn't ride that bad. It's much smoother than some of the newer cars that I get on. These are heavy cars, but all that weight tends toward a smoother ride. It's got a big enough wheelbase, a lot bigger than a Corolla, that it's going to ride and handle a lot better than a Corolla too. It's got plenty of acceleration. You can barely feel the transmission shift. It's a really nice convertible. And of course, it's a Toyota. The electric rag top still works on the convertible. The air conditioning, everything still works. They just stopped making these. It was a marketing mistake by Toyota to market it at this price point. And they never were into convertibles anyway. The owner just informed me last year the AC was cold here, but lukewarm there, so he watches my videos, and he went to Walmart and got some refrigerant and put it in himself. Lots of stuff you can do yourself. You can tell by listening. Listen to the door. This is a solid car. This is not a little tinny car. It's a heavy car, it's solid. Check out the difference. Definitely a lot tinnier. It works though. Yeah, they stopped making these cars, right? They made them for 9 years, sold them in the United States, and then they decided, hey, we're not gonna make anymore. If you want to buy a used one, especially a low mileage one, it can be a really smart move. So if you never want to miss another one of my new car repair videos, remember to ring that bell.